Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs. Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast, Chiefs post-game show. It is a victory party. Patrick Allen here with you, as is Price Carter. The Kansas City Chiefs defeat the New Orleans Saints 26-13 in a pretty dominant performance that didn't quite show up on the scoreboard, thanks to some usual Chiefs kids cover your ears, but fuckery, which we've come accustomed to from this team. But a lot of positive signs from this one, and really just a dominant performance. And the Royals won, which I know Price is really happy about sporting his Royals hat. Everybody loves to see the Yankees lose. So, Price, why don't you kick us off, man? What did you see out there from a 50,000-foot perspective?
So I want to preface this with a little bit of my experience. I don't know if you caught the intangibles this week. Maybe you didn't. But I actually watch and review all 22 for the Saints for FTN Fantasy. So I've had the ability to watch every single snap of their offense and defense all year. And I've got to tell you, you used the word dominant, and I really think that that's what this was by the Chiefs. You have Rashid Shaheed's an excellent deep threat, but a massive play that was just, I don't want to call it a 50-50 play because with Shaheed, they're more like 65-35, but Brian Cook just gets lost. But other than that play, and then what should have been a touchdown that hit Juju Smith-Schuster in the hands, and that was a legitimate drive. But I mean, this really was not close. And as we said, the Chiefs, they're prone to this. They like to keep it close. But even then, I don't know if you saw, but they were panning across the Arrowhead as the Chiefs got the ball back and kicked that field goal with about 5 minutes left. Everyone was headed to the parking lots. Like, it was over. Part of that might have been, too, that Derek Carr left this game injured. Hopefully it's nothing too serious for him. But the Saints this was the top scoring offense in the NFL, and the Chiefs held them to 13 points. Now, some of that was bloated from playing the Bryce Young Panthers in week 1, and then absolutely dog kicking the Cowboys in week 2. But this is an offense that's been extremely efficient. And we talked about it. The number one thing in this game had to be shutting down Alvin Kamara. This is an Alvin Kamara offense. They run it through him, and he has looked really good. And they did that. And they've had the ability to do that all year. 11 carries for 26 yards, 2.4 yards per carry. That was huge, and that made everything much harder on them. And then, obviously, the injuries were huge, too. Chris Jones, though, he didn't really fill up the stat sheet, was dominant in this game. But a great win. These are the type of wins that other teams don't do. You see, the Bengals go out and lose to the Commanders on Monday Night Football. Chiefs took care of business. They're on to the bye.
Shout out to Slothy for the super chat. As his new tradition of donating to the show. The final score, 26-13, a double-digit Chiefs win. Never a doubt. We are inevitable. Yeah, man. I mean, the dominance, just to set the stage for you guys, if maybe you didn't see the game and you're listening to this tomorrow, the Chiefs had a massive time of possession advantage in this game, 39-56 to 20 minutes and 4 seconds. They had 28 first downs to the Saints 14. They beat them on third down efficiency. They beat them on fourth down efficiency. The Chiefs ran 80 plays. The Saints ran 51. And they had 460 total yards to New Orleans, 220. I mean, it was really dominant. And you said it, Price. And I did catch the intangibles this week, and it was really fun listening to you kind of break down what the Saints like to do, what they've been trying to do all year, what's been working for them, and how this is a talented team, but they need some things to go in order for it all to work. And it starts with Alvin Kamara. And for him to get 11 carries for 26 yards in this game, he's able to do a little damage in the passing game. But the Chiefs knew what they needed to do, and they felt confident enough in their secondary to take care of. Really, it's a two-man band, right? When you're talking about the wide receivers for the Saints, it's Shaheed,
absolutely.
It's Olave, yeah, and they just wiped Olave. I'm a little sad about it. He's my Ohio State guy. Wiped him out of the game completely. 2 carries for 10 yards, and he was only targeted 4 times in this game. So Shaheed got behind him a little bit, made a play. That's what this guy does. But otherwise, fantastic job by the Chiefs defense in this one.
Yeah, and shout out to Trent McDuffie, right? Like, one of the big questions that I had going into the season as a whole was, how are the Chiefs going to be able to handle trading L'Jarius Sneed? That having that 2 lockdown corner system allowed them to be so diverse on defense. And McDuffie has just come out and looked every bit the part of L'Jarius Sneed. And he shut down wide receiver ones week after week, and he was on Olave for most of this, and Olave had like 2 catches for 10 yards. So that's been huge. The Chiefs basically traded like a top corner in the league and haven't missed a beat on defense. And that's awesome.
Yeah, and I know it's not really showing up in the sack column for the Chiefs this year. They got 1 sack in this game, but it's another game where they had 9 quarterback hits, and I believe they had double-digit quarterback hits last week against the Chargers. So the Chiefs are getting pressure, and I just couldn't help. And look, you need players to play well to execute in this league. But I really think that Steve Spagnuolo is – we talk about how great of a coordinator he is. I think he's getting better. Like, I think Steve Spagnuolo the last couple of years, every game the Chiefs play with this young group of talented defenders that they've been building over the years, he's unbelievable. His game planning, he almost never misses. It's so rare that the Chiefs go into a game these days and it's like, oh, they weren't prepared for what this team's doing. And they're just, this team's giving them fits. Like, he knows what he wants to do. He knows who he wants to take away. He knows when to dial the pressure at the right time. It's really just kind of like watching a master painter or something out there.
Well, one thing that I think is really special too is we see a lot of really good teams come out in the first half or the first quarter. On their first drive, they have that opening script and it just clicks and the team looks great. And then they run out of that script and all of a sudden the offensive play caller starts to lose that edge that they had. Steve Spagnuolo has the ability to go and get it when he needs it. And they're able to make plays when they have to happen. And Andy Reid's very good about this too. The pacing, it's like a pitcher. We're talking Royals. The guy's got 2 on, 2 outs, like last out before he's done for the day. He reaches back and has got 99 for the last strike. Being able to have that fastball at the end, that's something that Spagnuolo is so good at, that he has that call. And something else I'll point out too is that I think part of the reason why it feels like his defense is just growing and getting more multiple is the core of this defense is built around players who have been in the system for quite some time. The whole secondary has been returned several years in a row. The linebacking core was all here last year. Almost all these players, they essentially didn't add any defensive player except through the draft. So the being able to grow and understand the scheme more, they've talked about Spagnuolo's defense is that there's layers to it and they're able to just get more and more dynamic. I think back to the quote, it was an anonymous Chiefs player, but after the Super Bowl in 2022, they were laughing with each other and it was a defensive back. And he said, the funny thing is we don't even know how to play this defense. We just won a Super Bowl. So it's very obvious that they've grown in this. And Spagnuolo is like the 12th man on defense.
Shout out to Slothy for gifting 10 Arrowhead Addict subs. If you want to support the show, if you like what we do here, you're watching on YouTube, you could hit that like button, but you could also check out the link in the description. You could grab one of those subs. We had a blast in the Arrowhead Addict members Discord during this game, just kind of going through the motions with each other, talking about what was happening. It's a great community of like-minded Chiefs fans who support the show. They're friends of ours. We have a fantasy football league, happy hours, all that stuff. So it's just, and they care about the community so much that they gift subscriptions all the time. So that's what you're getting into if you want to support the show. Another way you can support the show is is check out Underdog. It's a great time of year. Again, football's back. It's here to stay till February. And over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. Went up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats. I've been playing around on Underdog. It's an absolute blast. Simple user interface. Go in, find your favorite players, see what they've got them set up as, passing yards, rushing yards, whatever, touchdowns, and then just choose higher or lower. It's simple. It's fun. You can win a little bit of money, low stakes. So, it's just really straightforward, and signing up is really easy. Just head on over to Underdog. They've got a simple to use mobile app, or you can go to underdogfantasy.com and sign up with our promo code Arrowhead Addict, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Arrowhead Addict to claim your new customer special or of a free pick and a deposit offer. It supports the show. It's amazing if you do it. You just have to be 18 or older, 19 or older if you're in Alabama or Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, you can call the 24/7 Hope line, 1-877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK, or text HOPE New York 467-369. All right, let's get back into the football. Appreciate y'all sitting through that. But seriously, go to Underdog, support the show. Rhett comes in with a super chat price, and he says, if I'm an opposing offense, I'm finding any way possible to get Brian Cook into coverage and throwing at him. He's one of the major weaknesses. You agree with that?
Yeah, he definitely didn't have his best night. I think there was a couple of times there that it looked like he got turned around. But we got to keep in mind that going out of safety is not something that's always the easy. Like defenses, a lot of times they're weak link systems. They have ways that they're able to. First off, you with the safety play, you never know who's going to be where. Like a lot of times, Cook does play deep, but Reid and Connor both rotate in there. You don't necessarily know where he's going pre-snaps. That's one of the things that Spagnuolo does a really good job of, is changing the picture post and pre-snap. And also, I would say squeaky wheel gets the grease here. We've not really seen this been a huge issue for Brian Cook. I think everyone's entitled to a bad night. Also, we're really talking about like one or two plays that they go one way, they go the other way. I think he was a little bit early on that play right as the game ended with Jake Haener. He didn't get a call for DPI, but he could have. But I would say like we've not seen Cook been a huge liability, and also like, hey, he caught an interception on a really tough play, like to be able to keep his body in bounds. And one thing that's nice about him is if he hadn't stepped out of bounds, he was probably going to score there. We saw him score a touchdown in Germany against Miami last year. He's pretty dynamic with the ball in his hands, like as a returner, if he gets a turnover. So the Chiefs desperately need that on defense. They've not really been a good defense at turning the ball over. Him and Watson is about the most dynamic like interceptor they have. So they really need that. So I would say like you take the good and the bad.
Yeah, Cook is athletic, man. I mean, when he gets that ball, he glides. Really interesting runner. Widely possible with the super chat. Appreciate you. Royals beat the Yanks. Chiefs still own Derek Carr. Into the K with series tied. Into the bye week 5-0. Let's go. What a time to be a KC sports fan. It really is. What a great day.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes said on the broadcast that he's going to be at the game on Wednesday out at the K. So that'll be exciting. Part owner. I know kind of something that's kind of a cool little side story. He missed a kick here, but Groupie, the kicker for the Saints, he actually grew up in Sedalia, which is about 2 hours south of Kansas City. And he came in wearing a George Brett jersey. Grew up a Kansas City fan, now kicks for the Saints. And there's a couple other players that are rocking Royals gear tonight. But yeah, really, really exciting time here in the Let's Go Royals chants inside of Arrowhead. It's exciting time. And it feels like we haven't really got this at the same time. We had that postseason run in 2014 and 15 with the Royals. And then we've had this run of dominance for the Chiefs. And I mean, now it's just both at the same time. Who can ask for more?
Yeah, and it's really great that the Chiefs are on the bye this week, and that the players, if they want, can go out and support the Royals and be there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I hate the Yankees. I'm not a Royals fan. Everybody knows I'm from Ohio, and I'm cheering for the Guardians, but I'm certainly pulling for the Royals to beat the Yankees. That's for sure.
I think it's funny that it's like the AL Central versus the Royals. Like we've got three AL Central. We got told all year long that they were just White Sox merchants, and that's the only reason why those teams were good. And then like, oh, here comes the playoffs, and there's 3 out of the 5 teams in the division that are in the playoffs. So
yeah, it was a fierce battle all season long. I don't generally like to root for my rivals, but I am all for whoever from the AL Central can come out on top, as long as it's not the Yankees, and go to the World Series and beat the Dodgers if they're there. Like, just enough of these. I'm a Midwestern guy. You're a Midwestern guy. The hell with these teams.
It's the payrolls, right? Like I think the Guardians Royals, and Tigers are all like the 20th, 21st, 27th payroll. And then on the other side of the bracket, you've got like the number 2 Yankees, number 1 Mets, number 3 Dodgers. It's gross. The payrolls, there's no cap on it. It sucks. So
I think if you add up the Royals, Tigers, and Guardians payroll, they like just barely eclipse the Yankees. It's ridiculous. Slothy comes in with who's been a member for 24 months, by the way, and is of course in our Ring of Honor. 2 years. Nick Wright wishes he could be as devout as me. Let's effing go, Chiefs. All right, lots to talk about. Before we get to the offense, I just want to ask you, Price, do you ever find yourself wishing Colin Saunders was still on the Chiefs?
I do. From this, like, he's an all-time vibes guy. The play was so fun. I love that. Oh, what's his name? The Cowboys former quarterback who's on with Troy Aikman. I love that Troy Aikman was able to point out like him carrying the ball. I remember him always advocating to get in on offense, but he looked great with the ball in his hands, and him taking like the ball to the end zone. You're like, no. Oh, he's got some speed. And then him pulling the ball up high and tight with Worthy trying to strip it out. It was kind of fun to see. You know, it's one of those, like, I saw quite a few Tyrann Mathieu jerseys as I was out and about today, like Tyrann Mathieu Chiefs jerseys. It's one of those guys that, like, obviously you don't wish them super well against the Chiefs, but you're happy to see them do well in any instance. Obviously, Willie Gay didn't play in this game. Tano Passanio's on the injured reserve. He's not playing for them this year, but it was good to see it. If someone was going to pick off Patrick Mahomes in that instance, I'm glad it was Colin Saunders. And the connection is really funny of him with Taylor Swift and his brother and everything. I saw someone post a picture of his brother dancing with Taylor Swift, and they're like, this guy just picked off Patrick Mahomes. So it was kind of funny. I saw Next Gen Stats said that he was the fastest ball carrier of 320 plus pounds in the last like 4 years or something. They eclipsed 15 miles per hour.
Yeah,
so
he's an incredible athlete. He really is an incredible athlete.
That video of him at the draft, he does like a front flip to a back flip or something that came out whenever he was drafted. He's always the player I go to too, whenever people like are ready to push the panic button on a prospect or a drafted player in year 1 or 2. Like Colin Saunders, I remember that year in 2022, people were talking that he wasn't going to make the team out of camp, and he ended up having a great year and getting a real contract. Player development, it just takes time. It's not always linear. So he's a guy like you wouldn't look back at him now and say, oh, that was a bad pick. That was a bad player. Yeah. But at the time, a lot of people thought it was. So just got to be patient. But yes, all-time vibes for Colin Saunders.
Yeah, a couple more chats. There's Slothy and Evan are comparing the length of their membership support of the show in the chat. My buddy Lars says Mahomes is a superstar, of course, but we are winning right now because we are truly a strong team. It's a wild thing to behold. I've always hated the Patriots, but we are Patriots-esque right now. I think that's 100% true. And then Matt says, do you guys think that with the Rice news, the Chiefs will bring in a receiver during the bye, whether trade or signing? I think they're going to try to get a receiver, despite how things went tonight, which was well. I still think they're going to try to get a receiver. I don't think it's going to happen until right before the deadline, though. Would you agree with that, Price?
Yeah, I wish that they were able to bring them in during the bye, so that way they could kind of use that time to get them antiquated with the offense. It just doesn't seem like it's probably tenable, especially because a lot of these teams, you got to remember, teams that are trading players, there's almost never a team that's in contention that's trading a player, right? It's teams that are out of it. And when people are out of it, that means jobs are on the line. Head coaches, assistant coaches, general managers, they don't want to wave the white flag. So as much as we want to think that teams are going to willingly hand over Amari Cooper or pick your favorite trade target, those teams have to admit defeat first. So you definitely should be rooting against teams like the Browns or, whatever wide receiver you want traded to the team. But it's not very likely that it'll be soon. It's not quite like baseball where there's teams that are out of it so quickly, and you can make a trade acquisition in early June and have that player for the better part of the half of the season. Shifting to the offense, I do think one thing that we saw that was very clear and deliberate here is like, hey, we are going to get more tight ends on the field and use them. We saw them use the 4 tight end package, and it felt like the bringing back of Jody Fortson was very deliberate. Again, Jody Fortson's mattering in 2024 was not something I had on my bingo card, but they made it work. And Travis Kelce looked very effective again. He's certainly not, we can do the thing about his age all we want, but he was a key part of the offense tonight.
Yeah, if I told you in I don't know, the middle of the first day of training camp, if I said, hey, Price, in the 5th game of the season for the Chiefs, some guys that are going to play an absolutely crucial role for them are going to be Juju Smith-Schuster, McCole Hardman, Samaje Perine,
and Kareem Hunt,
and Jody Fortson, you would have thought I was absolutely out of my mind.
Yeah, I think we've really we've not talked enough about just how truly unfortunate they've been with injuries on the offensive side. I mean, again, when you say all those players, Kareem Hunt, right? We never thought he'd be a Chief again. Samaje Perine had to be cut by the Broncos, a division rival, to be brought into the team. Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice. It's all so Jody Fortson, it's all so much that we've kind of whistled past the graveyard of wow, this really is a lot. And it was good to see Wanya Morris get back into the game. I was afraid that was going to be a serious knee injury, just kind of knowing how it went and everything. And he was able to go back in, but they just need some continuity more than anything there. And, we talked about it a little bit on our show that we thought one of the things that they could go back to is in 2022, they had a kind of a system in place where they ran the ball well. You had Juju Smith-Schuster, who was the slot guy, the yak guy, kind of that Rashee Rice role. You had a deep threat. MVS was the deep threat back then. You have Xavier Worthy here, and then Justin Watson do Justin Watson things. And for tonight, that really worked. The Chiefs were very committed to the run here too. One thing that is exciting to think about is what does this offense look like with Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt? Because Kareem Hunt still lays the wood when he runs. He's certainly not as dynamic as he used to be, but imagine, Kareem Hunt doing his thing and then, oh, hey, here comes Isaiah Pacheco with fresh legs. Defenders are not going to want to see that.
Yeah, to me, it's what really stands out with Kareem Hunt is just his vision. And that jump cut he does, which is so effective. He just finds those creases. I was actually saying in the Discord to everybody, I was like, there could be a nice advantage here of having Kareem Hunt on the roster with Isaiah Pacheco when he comes back, just as a little bit of veteran mentorship. Obviously, Pacheco's not a young guy anymore. He's won Super Bowls. All he's done is won Super Bowls, but he could stand to be a little bit more of a patient runner at times, and being able to just talk to a guy like Kareem Hunt, who's got a lot of experience in the league, see how he goes about things, see how he runs, pick up a couple of things could benefit him.
He's just the master of falling 1 yard forward. You know what I mean? Okay, he's wrapped up 2 yard gain. Oh, falls forward for 3. Or the red zone. That's the spot that I feel like he will be the most effective. Pacheco obviously has been very good, but there's times where he leaves some room to be desired, especially in the red zone. Having him in the red zone, Hunt has always finished there so well. And it's honestly shocks me that he's been as effective as he has been. But yeah, he looks good. The vision, I think this is a huge argument for vision over traits, right? Pacheco has the traits with the straight line speed, but Hunt's vision, it matters. And we've seen some of those outside zone plays from Hunt that we haven't seen in the offense for a little bit. And I think it does open up stuff. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster was so freaking open sometimes tonight that he just had miles to run. And I mean, Andy Reid getting Juju Smith-Schuster 130 yards in 2024, he was cooking to get that. And part of that is that they had to respect the run game. And also the Saints defense was pretty torn up. But yes, I felt like this was kind of a game that Andy Reid, you could tell that this was the difference between what was happening in the Chargers game and what happened here, where this looked like a game plan. I joked on the halftime show that was like the 2014 playbook, right? Where they didn't have a touchdown to wide receiver all year. So it seemed much more like the game plan that they might be able to go forward with.
Shout out to Pittsburgh Steve for the super chat. Great win. Need to improve the red zone offense. Juju looked great. Let's talk about Juju. And I was saying this to the guys in the Discord. Targeted 8 times, 7 receptions for 130 yards. Doesn't look quite as fast as he did a couple of years ago. But I'll tell you what, other than that, he looked a lot like the guy from a couple of years ago. How big would it be if Juju is able to approximate what he did for this team 2 years ago?
Yeah, Juju feels like the Toby Keith song, right? Like, I ain't as good once as I ever was, but I'm a good once, or whatever the saying is. Yeah, like I feel like he can catch the ball, and if he's got a lot of green grass in front of him, he can run ahead, but he's not going to do a whole lot of yak things. Like Rashee Rice was just a bowling ball with his hands, or with the ball in his hands, and we saw that touchdown that he scored against the Bengals. He also adds a layer down the field that I don't think Juju does. And also, we've already seen 2 plays in the red zone that Juju hypothetically could have caught, and one turned into an interception and the other didn't, but it was a drop. So drops were kind of an issue for him in New England. Look, I don't think that you're wanting to put Juju Smith-Schuster in that role, but I do think that he does fill a role here. And also, he's probably the best blocking wide receiver they have on the roster right now. And we didn't see much Justin Watson in this game. Xavier Worthy is going to continue to be a slow burn. And also, let's keep in mind, too, Xavier Worthy is not necessarily a player that you want to put more, like a ton of volume through him because of his build. To me, he was always like a complimentary wide receiver more than a true wide receiver 1. He looks great when you have Rice and Hollywood Brown, or Rice and Travis Kelce. It starts being a little bit bigger deal whenever you're trying to force feed an offense through him. So I think that he can be very useful. And again, you feel it's kind of like we'll stick with the baseball analogies. You got a great hitter. He looks really good until the 2, 3, and 4 hitter get hurt. And now he's being slotted in the 2 or 3 hole. You stop liking that player as much. If you can add another receiver who's better than Juju's role can continue to be valuable, but not be dependent. There's going to come a team, they're going to face the 49ers after the bye. There's going to be a team that is going to be able to match them with athleticism with players like Fred Warner or Malik Mustafa, some of the dynamic players that they have in the secondary for the 49ers who can cover Jared Wiley, Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, and Juju Smith-Schuster and say, okay, well, we're going to take everything away down here and we can stop the run enough with 4 down. We dare you to try to beat us over the top. And if there's something that you want to be concerned about in this game, it's just the continued inability to win down the field. We saw the play to Xavier Worthy against the Chargers. That's looking like an outlier more than it is the new normal. And again, we're not asking for Patrick Mahomes to just be frivolous with the ball and just bombs away. But the average depth of target in this game was 4.3 yards for Patrick Mahomes. And basically every wide receiver target minus 1 or 2 was manufactured touches. We get that they're short-handed on wide receivers, but they've got to continue to grow that part of the game because teams won't respect it. And we saw how difficult that was for the offense last year.
Yeah, I'll say this about Juju. The year that they won the Super Bowl with him against the Eagles, if you think back, that was really a Travis Kelce year, right? Travis Kelce was your number 1 wide receiver. And Juju had games like he had tonight during that season, 113 yards against the Bills, 124 against the 49ers. But a lot of his games were 3 for 35 against the Bengals, 3 for 38 against the Rams, 27 yards. He wasn't this dominant, but what he's really good at just finding space out there for the Chiefs. And maybe a lot of it is because they'll be using him as a blocker and teams kind of just don't know what he's doing on any given play. So I think if he could go out there and kind of keep doing this, not go for over 100 yards every week, but get those key catches. And that's what I remember the most from him that season was we'd be struggling a little bit. And then he would just find his way wide open and he would get a little bit of yak that year. I agree with you though. They've got to get another receiver in here because I don't think Xavier Worthy is going to be the guy that's just going to come in and get 7 catches a game, even by the end of the season. I don't think we're going to see the same trajectory necessarily with him that we saw with Rice last year. Hopefully what we start to see with him is some of those deep shots downfield where he and Patrick put it together, and some more of those. They're trying to get him on some of those crossers, and they just haven't been able to. Bad throw by Patrick tonight when he had him for maybe a potential big gain there.
And I wonder, like, when it goes back to the trading for a wide receiver thing, I do wonder how the Hollywood Brown impact is on this. Like, they've talked about his regular season is done. It sounds like there's a small chance that he could return late in the year or in the playoffs. How they feel about him will probably decide things. Like, if they feel like, hey, there's a chance he comes back in December or early January, maybe they don't make as big of a move, or maybe if they do feel like, hey, he's done for the full year, not even playoffs, maybe they make a slightly smaller move. Another name I'll throw out there, Darius Slayton for the Giants. He had over 100 yards yesterday. He is a perfect yak guy. He does a lot of things that Rashee Rice does. That's a guy that can make some sense. Also, I'll throw out Jalen Hyatt. Not nearly as a highly touted guy, but former Blitnikoff winner. He's a field stretcher, runs about 3 or 4 routes in yak. But hey, that's a guy who can stretch the field besides Worthy, and then you got Worthy too. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. But yes, they cannot rely on 67 or whatever it was yards from Kelce and 130 yards from Juju and plan on winning many games in the year 2024.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes with the Giants. I'm a little bit concerned because they've shown a little bit of a pulse recently. They're 2-3. I don't think they have a chance to win that division, but we'll see when you get closer to the trade deadline. And that's the other thing people need to remember. It'll be cheaper. Anybody the Chiefs trade for, it will be cheaper for them the longer that they wait. So that's something that they're going to be looking at, even with a guy like Amari Cooper. To me, that's the one. The Browns are a dumpster fire. They can't. Deshaun Watson's cooked. There's no reason for them to hang on to Amari Cooper past that trade deadline. If they can get literally anything for him, they structured his contract to move him. The Browns are done for. So I think that would be the easiest one for the Chiefs to pull off if he's a guy that they're interested in. Do you like his fit in this offense?
He would be probably the most accomplished route runner they've had at the wide receiver position, honestly, since probably Tyreek Hill. And he's even more of a little bit more refined route runner. With Tyreek Hill, obviously, he just had the superpower of speed to where the cuts and jumps were so dynamic. But yeah, Cooper really, it would be interesting to see because he lines up predominantly on the outside and, but he wins with route running. He wins with ability in man coverage. To me, he would be the type of player I think would take some time for Patrick Mahomes to gel with, but I do think he could open up a lot of things for the Chiefs in the intermediate part of the field, a spot that they've kind of struggled with post Tyreek Hill and, since Juju Smith-Schuster moved on the first time. Speaking of wide receivers, can we just do an homage to Verderant here about what the hell are they doing with Skyy Moore, man? I did not see him on the field offensively, but at this point, why is this man active? The muffed kick, he was able to scoop it up. I tweeted out, he clearly has just the most clear case of the yips, and it's unfortunate that it is the way it is, but it started with the punts his rookie year, and it's just never really gotten better. Thank you for your service with the punt return in the AFC Championship. Thank you for, even though you were lined up on the wrong side of the formation, you still caught a touchdown pass on Corn Dog 2.0. But they've got to start making him a healthy scratch. I just don't get it. That should be the goal for the wide receiver room, is get Skyy Moore to be a healthy scratch.
Yeah, and maybe they could just, I don't know, maybe they could ship him off. Maybe there's some team out there that thinks they can fix him or something.
Change of scenery guy, he makes a lot of sense. You're not getting a lot for him, right? Like, we're talking conditional 7th, conditional 6, but some team that liked him in the draft, there were many people nodding their heads in agreement as the Chiefs took him. PFF loved the Chiefs draft that year, and one of the reasons was because of Skyy Moore. There are things that people like about him, but it's clearly not going to happen here. You just got to stop trying to make Skyy Moore happen.
Yeah, it's just like Kadarius Toney. It's like every time he has the ball thrown his way or gets the ball, something bad happens. Like, I swear to God, I tweeted this out. Like, can you remember the last time that a ball was going Skyy Moore's way or Skyy Moore had the ball in his hands where something good happened? And a lot of people were like, it was the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I mean, I'll say this, is decimated by injuries as this offense is, I think what you saw tonight versus last year was, as long as there are competent players who can execute, they don't need to be the most talented people in the NFL. Because you have Patrick Mahomes and because you have Andy Reid. And I think that's why they like bringing some of these people in that, like, bringing back Jody Fortson. And you're like, well, why would they do that? Why did they bring back Kareem Hunt? Like, it's because they know them and they have a certain degree of trust that they'll be able to execute. And what we saw last year with MVS and Kadarius Toney and Skyy Moore was just a shit show of ineptitude. They could not execute. And so they were just doing more harm than good whenever the ball was coming their way. And Andy Reid is such a brilliant play caller and play designer. I mean, he's made offenses work. Do you remember some of the offense when he first came to Kansas City? And it was like Jason Avant. And like, I can't even remember all the guys. There was nobody's. And they were scoring points. So I never panic about the Chiefs offense as long as they have people who are competent, because he's going to be able to do game plans like he did tonight, where he's putting 4 tight ends out there, where he's utilizing guys that got cut from other teams and making them effective. It's remarkable.
Yeah, and I think let's keep in mind too, like, I've heard some people kind of clamoring about, it's kind of silly that the Chiefs are having this like reunion theme with so many of their players. Well, this out of necessity. We haven't seen those type of players come back on defense. They're not bringing back Frank Clark or players like that. They are using these players out of necessity because of an injury-riddled offense, right? That's the only reason why. If Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, if those guys are healthy, we're not talking about Jody Fortson or, maybe Juju. I think Juju was brought back. Hollywood had already gotten injured, but Rashee Rice was healthy. Juju made sense because he was going to be the last wide receiver in the wide receiver room. Obviously, he's become much more crucial now. But yes, the floor of the offense remains high because they have gotten, obviously, great offensive leadership with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You have Travis Kelce, who can be go-to. And also, let's keep in mind, the team, like the iterations of the Patriots that were dynasties, the teams look different year after year. And right now, the Chiefs are a ground and pound team that runs the ball well, that plays good defense, and then when they need to, they can ask their quarterback to be Superman and put on the cape for 5 to 10 plays a game. And that's going to win them a lot of football games. Obviously, when it comes to analysis of the Chiefs, we're talking about winning the right games in January and February. We'll get there when we get there, but right now they just got to make the best version of themselves and make the path as easy as possible. They're 5-0. They took a huge step forward on the AFC here by winning this game. The Bills lost again. They've got 2 losses. The Texans are really the only team that's kind of breathing down their neck with 1 loss, but they've took advantage of a huge opportunity here, and now they get to rest up.
Yeah, and I guess we got to talk about that other guy, Patrick Mahomes. 28 of 39, 331 yards passing, 8.5 average. I want to know what you saw. What I saw was a much more decisive. I mean, he had his moments, but I thought he was much more decisive. I thought he looked a lot more comfortable tonight and was just seeing the field better than maybe he has all season long.
It does feel like he's kind of stacked good starts after the Bengals game, which was kind of the rock bottom as far as production for him. It really stinks because I really thought he did not put the ball in harm's way at all. Those are high-risk plays, those RPOs like that, where they're just gunning the ball in on a slant. That pass to Juju, I'm not going to say it was perfect because it was a little bit behind him, but also, like, it's okay for Juju Smith-Schuster to make a play there that turned into an interception. His stat line looks a lot better if that's 1 touchdown and 0 interceptions, 300-plus yards. To me, the one thing that I continue to just be a little bit kind of puzzled by is some of the pocket movement from him. Like, there was that time that he was like, he had a ton of time in the pocket, but just was like spinning randomly. It does kind of feel like he continues to not want to step up as much as he should. And I think part of that is just not trusting the tackles. Like, I think he's afraid that people are coming from behind him. And then something that I've just noticed is less and less this year, we're getting Patrick Mahomes rolling right, rolling left out of the pocket and passing the ball. Feels like a lot of times now when he breaks the pocket, he's breaking the pocket and looking to run rather than looking downfield. And I think part of that is when those plays break down, a lot of times, who was he looking for? He's looking for Kelce and he's looking for Rice. Rice isn't there anymore. Kelce is getting older, hasn't been as effective as he was in years past. That's one thing that I would like to see continue to grow. We've not seen Xavier Worthy get found there. The good news is with Xavier Worthy and his speed, if he does get lost in those zones or on a broken plays, like he could house it, right? Or he could get wide the heck open because of his speed. So that's something that's got to grow. It's going to take time. We just got to remember too, like Rashee Rice at this point in his career and where Xavier Worthy is in this part of his career in his rookie year, they're very much parallels as far as their yardage and production. Very different players, but Rashee Rice finished the season as like one of the Chiefs' top targets, a most important skill position player. So there's still a path for Xavier Worthy's role to just grow and grow.
What do you think of Kelce tonight? He finishes with 9 receptions, 70 yards on 10 targets. Hasn't gotten the end zone yet, but solid game from him.
Yeah, I thought the things that you rely on Travis Kelce to do here were important. I still don't necessarily understand the throwing screens out to him. Like that to me just kind of feels like, hey, could this be Jared Wiley? Could this be Noah Gray? That feels a little bit more like excessive usage than needed, but the 3rd and Kelce just remains to be a thing, right? Like right early in the game, you see Pat hit his back foot, find Kelce right away, boom, first down. That's the thing that you like to see. And then him finding the soft spots in the zone and they're an intermediate part of the field. That's a huge part of the offense. And I thought he looked great. You know, obviously we're doing the caveat thing where we just say, hey, he is older. He's not as dynamic. He's not breaking as many tackles when he gets it, but that's what he's going to be at this point. They can definitely win a Super Bowl with this version of Travis Kelce. It's going to be the pieces around him and keeping him healthy.
Yeah, and I thought a couple of the replays of some of the routes that I saw him run. I mean, he still juke a guy out of his cleats and get wide open. So as long as he can do that and they can match up the timing, maybe, you know, that catch and run he had, there's a time where he scores on that play. He makes the guy miss and he takes it all the way to the end zone. He didn't even look like he was really going to try to score. He just kind of ran to the tackler there. But I'll take it, man. As long as he ages gracefully, he certainly has enough left in the tank to help this team win another Super Bowl. Before we get to awarding some hardware and giving out some arrowheads, this is the Arrowhead Addict podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit the like button. And if you want to support the show, you can check out the link in the description. You can find out about becoming a member. You can snag one of those memberships that Slothy's giving away like candy in the chat. Or you could head over to Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review over at Apple Podcasts. We're trying to get to 400 reviews over there. And if you do that and you ask a question in your review, I will read it and answer your question on the Thursday show. Real quick, before we do arrowheads, Price, did Carson Steele's alligator eat his eyeballs? What in God's name was he seeing on that play where there was clearly a defender right there? Why didn't he just take care of the football and take the tackle there?
Well, to me, that looked like a designer play. Like it looked like what was supposed to happen because you saw Mahomes started jetting out. I don't know if it was supposed to be a throwback. Xavier Worthy actually threw like 4 or 5 passes in Steve Sarkisian's offense. In fact, he had a huge completion to tight end Jatavian Sanders in, I believe it was the Alabama game. But Worthy can throw the ball. It was something that like it was kind of a nice little fun thing that if you find in his film. So I think maybe that's what they were going for. I'm not sure, but like let's just like. Okay. So here's the play, right? Carson Steele gets the ball and he hands it off to Xavier Worthy. Stop. I hate it. I hate it already. Don't do it, please. Right? Yeah. Like, especially whenever you factor in like the struggles Carson Steele has had with taking care of the ball. He's entering the like hold your breath when he carries the ball, even on kickoff return. So yes, it felt like they were trying to get a little too cute there. Right now, the Chiefs offense, it feels like they kind of have to do that in order to be effective sometimes. Like they've used the Travis Kelce as the Wildcat quarterback. They've used that for several years now. And at some point I think he has thrown a touchdown pass at some point, but they continue to have the threat of him as a former high school quarterback. And he does read well. Like he made that right read with Xavier Worthy for the touchdown run. But yes, let's not do that. Right. That one just started off bad and didn't get any better. Yes, that was a little rough.
I actually don't think, maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't think Kelce has thrown a touchdown. In fact, I think he's attempted 2 passes and thrown interceptions on both of them. That's my recollection. We'll have to look that up and see if he may never get another chance to throw the ball again because of that. Shout out to Justin Hayes for the super chat as well. Can we give McCole a shout out? I've been saying all year that he's a red zone threat, and he showed it tonight. He balled out in 2022 before the injury. I thought this was a perfect McCole Hardman game. Like, we talked about putting players in a position to succeed, using them for what they do well. That's exactly how they used McCole Hardman in this game. They weren't trying to find him downfield a lot. It's not something where he really excels, except for the occasional deep shot, because he can use the speed out there. Screens, those types of plays. I thought this was a good McCole game.
I have an update on Travis Kelce as a passer.
Okay.
For us. Okay. So in the regular season, Travis Kelce is a brutal 1 for 3, 1 completion, 3 attempts. He's thrown 2. He's thrown 1 interception.
1. Okay.
The completion was for 4 yards. However, in the playoffs is when he really turns it on. He has 1 completion for 1 attempt for 2 yards and a touchdown in 2021. So he did throw a playoff touchdown pass. I think that was like a Tyreek Hill. I think it was in that Steelers game. They had some kind of trickery in that game. Like Nick Allegretti caught a touchdown in that playoff game as well too. But so yes, but for McCole Hardman, yeah, like I think his role, he's fine as that kind of gadget guy. I think again that kind of keeps some of the miles off of Xavier Worthy, because if you're using him on manufactured touch stuff, that's putting him more at risk. Like the closer you are to the big guys, that's where 165 pounds, 5'10" starts showing up for Xavier Worthy. McCole's a little bit thicker built, and also I think he's done a pretty good job in that role. They got him going in some of those push passes. That was really effective a couple of years ago for them. I think integrating McCole could be something that could help this offense kind of loosen up. We saw them continue to trust him down the field, despite really struggling until the Super Bowl down the field. That was something that they did. And I think more McCole Hardman might be a good option for this offense going forward.
More McCole Hardman. Here we are in the year of our Lord, 2024. All right, let's give out some arrowheads. Why don't you kick us off, Price? Who are some players you felt earned their arrowheads today?
I feel like you got to give it to Kareem Hunt for one of the players. Just like coming in 2 weeks' time and becoming the bell cow of the offense. He carried the ball for 27 times for 102 yards and also looked pretty good in the passing game. I know he only had 1 catch, but for 15 yards, he just opens up so much of this offense that was desperately needed. I'm not necessarily sure if the Chiefs are able to do what they did on offense tonight with Carson Steele and Samaje Perine. Huge shout out to him. And then I'm also going to give my other one out. I won't steal Juju Smith-Schuster because he is a very obvious one and played really good. I'm going to give mine to Xavier Worthy's mom, who looks like he could be his fiance. Shout out to her because nice, like great job for him. So when he ended the ball I was like, oh, he's giving it to his fiance. I know he's engaged. I'm like, oh, that's his mom. Wow, It makes sense. 18 she had him, they said, but Xavier Worthy's mom gets the other arrowhead. Shout out to her.
Everything I've seen with Xavier Worthy sounds like he just seems like he's just a really nice kid. So,
you know what? Like,
good job by mom raising.
This is a unique situation nowadays in college football. Xavier Worthy came out of Texas and was a millionaire, right? Like he already had tons of money from NIL, a top recruit, played for one of the premier college football teams, and he didn't come in and act all arrogant or cocky or off the rail. Like he's bought a house, he's engaged. Seems like he's got a really good head on his shoulder. So very, very good job of bringing in a smart player there. So yes.
Yeah. Way to go, mama. All right, let's see here. I'm going to give out some hardware. You stole Kareem Hunt from me, but that was a good one. And it makes a lot of sense. Let me give one to Noah Gray. Does so much dirty work for this team. 2 catches in this game for 29 yards. He's out there blocking. He just a couple times a game, Noah Gray shows up, makes a big play for them. But he's also out there doing the dirty work. And I just think, I think a lot of people were confused about why they signed Noah Gray, but I just feel like the more and more you see him out there, you can kind of understand why. Maybe a slight overpay, but they see him as a nuts and bolts guy that helps them execute the things that they want to do on offense. So want to give him some recognition because he doesn't often get those big stat games that make it really obvious that he should get an Arrowhead, but I think he did today. Who else do we want to?
I got one more.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Nick Bolton. We've been critical of him when he needed to be, especially the first couple of games of the year. But this was the signature Nick Bolton game. You get 11 total tackles, 6 solo, 2 tackles for a loss. He looked like he knew the play sometimes before it even happened, right? Like he was just boom, right off the ball, ready to go. He was a big part of why they were able to shut down Alvin Kamara in this game. He's looked better and better week after week. And, we hear so much about him being the quarterback of the defense. And I think this was a game that really, really showed that.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Clint McKenzie, my guy, coming in with the $50 super chat. Chiefs,
Wow.
appreciate you, Clint.
You're awesome, Clint.
Yeah, Clint's my guy. So here's one. I'm going to give this to the trio of Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. We talked about the great job that Kareem Hunt did in this game. The Chiefs being able to run up the middle like this new identity that they have of kind of being a little bit of a power run team. Those guys are just we kind of been waiting for it since they got these 3 great interior offensive linemen. It was kind of like, when are they going to start? These guys are really good, like nasty run blockers. Like Trey Smith gets out there and wreaks havoc. And here you go, man. I mean, you're finally starting to see it. They're just wiping guys out, making plenty of room and creases for Kareem Hunt. Carson Steele is still doing a nice job running the ball too, because he's got space to just run up in there and punch it in. So those guys get an Arrowhead for me. Again, more unsung heroes, but they're fantastic this year for the Chiefs.
Yeah, they really have been a superpower for this offense year after year, and it's unfortunate that they're probably not going to be able to keep that trio together much longer. But yeah, it's great to just see that constant movement on the inside. And Nate Tice tweeted out that the Chiefs have been the most effective offense on running the ball on first down. They're over 50% success rate, which basically means, are they gaining positive yardage that makes sense for the down and distance? So if it's first down and 10, getting 1 yard isn't successful, but getting anything more than 3 or 4 is. And you saw that with Kareem Hunt tonight. It was just like, boom, 4 yards, boom, 4 yards. I found myself several times watching the game as I was going back and forth between televisions, looking at both, like, run it again, which is, I feel like I never say that, but it was just so effective. And those big uglies inside, Thuney, Creed, Trey, that's part of the reason why.
And let's give one to Turk Wharton, man. I mean, he's just having a year here for the Chiefs.
He's about to make himself a lot of money.
Yeah, he sure is. He's really taking advantage of the opportunity. And I'd be remiss not to give one to Trent McDuffie. I don't know if he was following Olave all game. It kind of felt like he was, but Olave didn't do shit. So it's the Trent McDuffie effect.
I just saw this interaction on Twitter. Like diva wide receivers, their dads posting and commenting about their sons. It's become a thing. Josh Olave, who is Chris Olave's dad, just tweeted the phrase "one target," and then someone quote tweeted it with a picture of Trent McDuffie, which I thought was just excellent. Hey, like you're on McDuffie Island. Sorry.
Yeah, it's why do you do this? Like, if you're a parent, it's so selfish to, I don't know, maybe when Rory gets older and he starts playing Little League, like I'll be one of those awful parents that like yell at the coaches and the umpires. But like, what are you doing, man? Like your son is not only is he a world-class athlete playing at the highest level, he's one of the most talented players in the NFL. His quarterback is Derek Carr, okay? And his coach is Dennis Allen. Like, ease off. Like, it's just, I would be so embarrassed if I was Chris Olave, if I had to go in the locker room and like Derek Carr is like looking at his Twitter and he's like, is your dad accusing me of like purposefully not throwing the ball to you? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's like, he's an adult. Just enjoy the fact that like cheer for your kid, bitch about it at home that he only got 1 target. You know what I mean? You don't tweet it. That's a selfish act.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing where it's just like, oh, well, my kid's always right. Like, oh, well, he was open all night. You just didn't get the ball to him or whatever. It's like, well, there's a lot of moving pieces on an offense. Like sometimes he just might not have been part of the game plan. Like, hey, we're gonna have you go out, take Trent McDuffie essentially out of the game as a receiver, and then we're gonna really try to hit on these deep balls to Shaheed. Sometimes being a good teammate, it's not about getting stats; it's about opening things up for other plays. And we see it all the time. In the Little League analogy, it's perfect, right? We see that all the time today, where people don't want to be umpires or volunteer referees because of how like terrible people are to them. Or you could just be like me and just have like really unathletic genes in your family, and then you just don't have to worry about it with your kids.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
you can yell at the chess tournaments and stuff.
Yeah. Probably more likely.
So the Chiefs are going into the bye week, a perfect 5-0, remarkable considering all the adversity that they've already faced this season. And they're going to need that bye week because when they come back, they've got a Super Bowl rematch on the road against the San Francisco 49ers, who have their own share of injuries. They're a bit banged up, but that's a talented football team that is going to want to get some revenge. And then they have to take on the Las Vegas Raiders on the road at their other home stadium out there in Las Vegas, the one where they won a Super Bowl before the Raiders won a playoff game there. So this is going to be a big bye week for the Chiefs to evaluate what they have now. And they talked about it on the broadcast, right? If you were watching before the game, about how the Chiefs said, hey, they wanted to see a few guys rotate in here and figure out, because last week you have to throw last week out. They had a game plan for the Chargers that involved Rashee Rice. He got hurt. And then you're just kind of scrambling to try to figure out a way to win the game from a game plan perspective. This is a game where they knew what they had coming in. They had a plan for these guys, and it was a little bit of a tryout of sorts. So, are we going to see more Juju Smith-Schuster? Are we going to see Skyy Moore get nailed to the bench? That's some of the stuff that they're going to be figuring out here in the bye week. And I'm sure that Andy Reid's going to have a lot of conversations with Brett Veach about, well, what would you like to do if you had? I think that those are some conversations that are going to happen during the bye week as well, so that as they head into the trade deadline, I believe is like really early November. So the Chiefs have some time to figure some stuff out, but a huge bye week for them coming up. But as we sit here, before we get out of here, Price, if you stand back and you look at the AFC field right now, who are your top two threats to the Chiefs and getting back to a Super Bowl?
It's tough. I think right now, if I had to rank them, I'm going to pick the Bills. I know that they're on a little bit of a lull here. I think they'll get some of the issues figured out that they have going on right now. It's just really hard to pick against Josh Allen and what they're able to do running the ball. And then for me, it's probably the Ravens. I think their defense has a lot of holes to it right now, but what they can do running the ball just makes them so hard to defend when they do want to pass the ball. And I do think that we've seen an improved version of Lamar Jackson the last couple of years. And then it's probably the Texans. I don't think that offense has quite been what it was last year. The defense is still very good, and CJ Stroud is capable of making those 2 to 3 plays that only a few guys in the league can. And it feels weird to say next, but it's probably still the Bengals. They're getting darn close to being buried and dead at 1-4. But we also saw the Chiefs make the playoffs after starting a season 1-5 in 2015. So it does happen. They've got a nice little cushy schedule coming up here, perks of being one of the last place finishers in their division. But they've allotted themselves no margin for error. And that defense makes it so they're going to have to win games 35-30 weekly. Now, Joe Burrow looks very good. He looks like, honestly, his old self after the wrist injury, and getting T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And now they have Yosevas and Burton. They have some nice players, and they're using Mike Gesicki well, but that defense is brutal. So those are probably the top 4 contenders in my opinion.
I'm with you on that. And I think, look, if you're the Chiefs, you'd rather not see the Bengals in the playoffs just because of the effective defensive schemes that they seem to have against the Chiefs every time they play. And I'm with you, man. I mean, that offense looked really potent this week. And even at 1-4, and I think they are literally dead last in the AFC based on all the tiebreakers. If you stand back and you look at the AFC right now, it's kind of a little bit of a cluster. I mean, they're 1-4, and yes, they're in last place, but with the extra wild card spot now that like there's a slew of teams that are I mean, the Broncos are a playoff team right now. The Broncos at 3-2, a 7 seed would be the Chargers at 2-2. So there's a lot of teams bunched up in the middle. So it would not be difficult for the Bengals to climb out of this hole, go on a little bit of run. And if you look at their schedule and some of the teams that they play, they're talented enough to claw their way back to 500, and 500 might get them in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's one of those things, at least the AFC thing for them is a big deal where like they already are down a lot of tiebreakers. Their sole win has come against the NFC and against Andy Dalton, by the way. So it's not going to get any easier for them. They definitely have an uphill climb. A nice little interesting stat that comes from Scott Kaczmar, who's an excellent follow on Twitter, especially if you're a Chiefs fan. Tweets out a lot of great stats. This is now the 12th year in a row that the Chiefs have had a winning streak of 5 games or more. That almost lines up essentially with the Andy Reid tenure. That's really big. They're the only team to have a streak of such. So that's huge. And that ability to just rip off wins like that, it's a big part of the success that they've had year over year.
All right, everybody, we got to get out of here. Let you all get some sleep. I'll be up in 2 hours with the baby anyway, so the hell, I'll try to just roll through. Thank you so much for your support all the way up into the bye week. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere here at Arrowhead Addict. We'll be back with our regular slate of shows next week. Enjoy the bye week. Have a good time. Go back, watch some old episodes of the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Call us out for what we were wrong on, what we were right on. Review the podcast. Join the Arrowhead Addict membership program. But we'll see you guys later this week for our I'm saying next week, but it's Monday Night Football. So we'll be back tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday with all of our shows. I'm all out of sorts here. I'm thinking it's a Sunday game. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you to producer Richard for making this thing work. Thank you to Price Carter. Thank you to Price Carter for doing halftime. And thank you to Adam Best and our own Matt Connor for the pregame show. We'll see you guys tomorrow. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.